Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I'm going to say welcome to everyone to another episode of Mannimal Research. I will be flying solo tonight. My partner in crime, Mr. Walls, is, excuse me just a second. I'm going to say welcome to everyone to another episode of Mannimal Research. I will be flying solo tonight. All right, I'm sorry about that. We had some feedback that's coming through another device I got set up. Sorry about that. Anyway, like I was saying, I'll be alone tonight. Mr. Walls is off doing some work tonight. Got to pay some bills, so can't fault him for that. But we got a good show lined up for you guys tonight. We got the Oldbear in from Oldbear's Den of Bigfoot. And I just want to say before we get going, like always, those of you that haven't, if you would, please hit that subscribe button. And also, if everyone would run over to mannimalresearch.com, check out our website. You can report your encounters over there, your sightings, and stuff like that. You can also find information about doing some research with us, getting out in the field with us, and maybe even becoming a member. But definitely get over there and check that out. And the most important thing is getting your encounters put in. And if you guys want to come on a live episode, be one of our guests, that option is there too. If you don't want your identity shared, we can do that too. We can protect your anonymity without a doubt. But guys, yeah, appreciate that. And also check us out on Facebook, Mannimal Research on Facebook. We've got the group up on there. Just search Mannimal Research. Again, that's Mannimal with two N's, and you'll find us on there, and be happy to get you set up over there. All right. All of that being said, again, thank everybody for joining in. Those of you that are watching us live tonight, those of you that will come back and watch it later, we certainly appreciate it. And there is something that I wanted to touch on a little bit before we bring our guest out. As I've stated on here before, I have recently found the Lord. I've been going to church and praying, and guys, my life has improved in ways that I really can't tell you. Something else that's happened, since I started praying and going to church is, there were some changes in our organization in Mannimal, also in this show. There were some changes. A lot of our people that's been here for a while, they know what I'm talking about. But in that month or 6 weeks, however long it's been, we have more than doubled in our subscribers. We went from about 240 subscribers about a month ago to we're pushing 600 right now. And we started doing this in January, and it's just another testament to how the Lord works. I started praying, and one of the things that I prayed for was for this show and our group, and helping us to do the right thing and to be honest with people, and just try to put the word out that, in my opinion, this is one of God's creatures. It is, and we're just trying to learn as much about another one of God's creatures as we can. So that's all we're doing. And like I've said before, this is not a religious channel. It's not a Bible thumper, anything like that. So I'm not going to push a lot of that on you. This isn't the place for that. But I do want to give credit where credit is earned, and that's through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So yeah, all that out of the way. And saying all that, I wanted to thank everyone for helping us grow. Like I said, we're going to be at 600 here pretty soon, and I never Never thought we would hit that mark as quickly as we have. We started our first video was in January of this year. We do a video a week. Tonight is number 39, I think, and we're already around 600 subscribers. We're nowhere near where we want to be, and we're going to continue to grow and stuff. And all of that goes to you guys, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done, and spreading the word and getting our name out there, and just hope that continues. All right, guys. Like I mentioned before, our guest tonight is the Oldbear, the Oldbear's Den of Bigfoot. He has over 9,000 subscribers, so he is doing something right. I'm sure a lot of you know about him. He has a very successful show. Like I said over there, he passes along Bigfoot encounters as well as other cryptids. I've seen him do some. I've seen him or heard him talk about Dogman and even Chupacabra in Tennessee, and that's where I live in Tennessee. Another reason I like him so much is he shares a lot of stuff that happens in Tennessee, and I'm a Tennessee boy. So all that being said, we're going to bring him on if you guys are ready. There he is. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on and talk about stuff that's going on with you, and something I need to tell the guests about. Old Bear, he does have a really successful show. Like I said, 9,000 subscribers, but he's gotten those from talking, from sharing experiences from other people, and I was curious about what got him started in this, and he has told me that he's had about 8 sightings himself over about 36 years, and that's what I wanted to talk to him about tonight. So I want to get him to share some of his experiences. And the first thing I usually ask people is, before your first encounter, I believe you said you were 16 years old. What was your level of knowledge of Bigfoot? Were you a believer?
No, I didn't believe in Bigfoot. I had seen the Patterson and Gimlin film. I didn't see it until the late 80s or maybe 80 when I saw it. And then I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek when I was 15. My dad and I watched it with my mom and my younger brother there. And we watched it. I begged him to see it. I just wanted to see the movie. And that's all I knew before I saw Bigfoot at 16.
Okay, and you were about 16 years old, so a young man when you had your encounter. Will you share that with us, please?
Yeah, I sure can. It was the last day of buck only rifle season here in West Virginia, um, and my dad had to work at the time. He was running a route, and when he came home, he said, it was a warm day. Here in West Virginia that time of the year, it's the first Saturday in December usually. Whenever that time comes around, and the first Saturday of December is the last day of our season, and I'd already got all my stuff ready. I was in blue jeans, had a flannel shirt on. That was part of going hunting when I was that age. You wore a flannel shirt and a blaze orange vest and a blaze orange cap. And it took my mom to get my dad to take me deer hunting that day. And he decided we was going to go to a certain place in Wirt County. And it's back then speed limit on the interstate was 55, so it took us a couple hours to get there. It's a little bit of a drive, and we got there and went out on this one ridge we called Long Ridge, and he parked the Blazer, and I got out and got all my stuff together, and I looked at that and I said, "Dad, can I go by myself? I'm 16 now. I got my own license." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Anytime you want," he said, "you're big enough, you're old enough now. Go ahead and go by yourself. Just let me know where you're going to be." I told him where I was going to be, and I walked about a mile back out to where I wanted to hunt. And I told Dad, I said, "Dad, this is where I'm going to exactly be. I'll be right there next to the big boulders off to the right of the road. And he said, well, don't go down in the holler. Just stay a couple benches off the road. If I need you, you'll be able to hear me shoot if I shoot a deer or whatever. And I kind of laughed and said, no, you'll be able to hear me when I shoot. So I walked away from my dad and went out there and sit down exactly where I told him I was going to be, about 20 feet from this huge boulder. Uh, they had clear cut that area quite a few years before, probably 20 or 30 years before that. And everything had already grown back up, the big oaks and stuff were back in there. And I sit down right on the edge of the bench, just 20 feet from these boulders, and they were just over the bank from me. I guess they'd pushed them down there with a dozer because that was long before I was born. And what happened was I'd been sitting there about 30 minutes, and I heard something running through the leaves, and I was looking back up a little hollow that was off to my left. Well, these three does come running out from behind the boulder, and they stopped probably 50 or 60 feet from me and just stand there with their tongues hung out. They'd been ran, and I was thinking, well, that's bucks running in them does. Well, what happened was finally after about 15, 20 seconds, they took off again, and I heard something that sounded like a buck grunting. Uh, Anybody that hunts knows what I'm talking about. And the thing of it was, I heard a deer run off, and when they got out of earshot, I heard something else walking. And I didn't pay attention to how many steps it was taking or anything like that, if it was four paws or not, four hooves, whatever. And I was just sitting there intent on this being a buck because I heard the grunting. And after about a minute or so, I seen something on top of that boulder, which was probably, I can stand at the boulder, and I'm 5 foot 11 or 5'10", and I can stick my hand. You can just see the tops of my fingers from here up on the boulder, and so that's close to 7 feet. Well, I saw something on top of the boulder, and I thought it was just a big red squirrel because of the color of the hair and stuff that was on it. And after that, it stopped. And I was still looking at the top of it, and I'm thinking, man, what is that squirrel doing? Where's that buck? He should have been here by now. So I raised my rifle up, put it up against my shoulder, and I had a 30-30 Winchester, which is a lever action rifle. And I'm sitting there looking down across the barrel and over top of the sights at the edge of this boulder, and I'm right-handed. And then it started walking again. So I'm thinking, all right, good. This buck's going to come out, and I'm going to get a shot at it. My dad's going to hear it. He's going to come out and help me, get it up a couple of levels, and he'll be proud of me, for getting my first buck. Well, that ain't what walked out. This thing walked out on 2 feet. It was, over 7 feet tall because it was hunched over and it didn't stand upright. It didn't lock its knees like humans would. So it was kind of squashed down just a little bit, probably 6 or 8 inches lower than what it would if it stood upright. And it didn't look nothing like a white-tailed deer. There wasn't no antlers. And it wasn't brown. It was a reddish brown collar, like an auburn colored hair. And it's standing there, and it's breathing a little bit heavy. Its chest and shoulders are moving, but it's breathing heavy. And I'm sitting there on the ground looking at this thing across the top of the rifle, and I'm like, what in the world is this? And then I was like, almost instantly, something clicked in my head and said, "This is a Bigfoot, Sasquatch." And I'm like, "They're not real. They're not supposed to be real." I watched the movie and I seen the Patterson Gimel film. I thought, this is something somebody made up. Well, I was wrong. After about 15, 20 seconds of standing there, it turned its whole body and looked right dead at me. And had a look on its face of complete surprise. Like, how in the world did you get here? What are you doing here? And there wasn't nobody else out there. We didn't see any other vehicles. There were no people out there. We didn't see anybody hunting. And once we got out, once this thing turned and looked at me, I'm like, this might go bad. This thing is bigger than me. Clearly, it's got arms the size of my thighs. And I'm looking at it and I'm wondering, how in the world am I going to get out of this trouble? Could I shoot and scare it off, or could could I stand up, to my full height? Because back then I wasn't as big as I am now. I was around 200, 225 pounds, and I was played football and all that stuff when I was younger, and this thing was just standing there staring at me with that expression of surprise on its face. Then it kind of dropped from surprise to it opens its mouth and started baring its teeth at me, and it started growling. And when it started growling at me, it took one small step towards me, and I moved my thumb up to the hammer on the rifle, thinking this is going to end one of two ways. I'm going to end up shooting this thing, and hopefully I can run and get out of here, or shooting at it and maybe scaring it off, because that was what was going through my mind at that time. And after that, I was like, I didn't freeze up. A lot of people talk about they froze up when they see them. I didn't have time to freeze up, I don't think. I'd been trained by my dad that, how to shoot and all that stuff when I was a little kid. And my older brother was in the Air Force. And when he came home, he taught us the best he could, me and my younger brother, about, not freezing up and not getting buck fever, and, how not to freeze up under pressure. So after this thing started growling at me, it growled at me for probably, I don't know, 15 seconds maybe. And then it started to take another step. And when it took that second step, I pulled the hammer back and just dropped my eyes down to the top of the barrel and looked right across the sights at it. Had the sights pointed right at right here at its nose. And the nose on the thing looked like a human nose, like mine, just pushed down. And it didn't have any hair on its face. It had a dark color face, and it had long hair coming down here. It didn't look like it had a neck, because it was, I was above it and it was looking up at me, but all the neck I could see was just here. And there wasn't any neck going around like us. This looked like something come from here down to almost half of the shoulder. This thing is 3.5 foot wide, 4 foot wide. And when I clicked that hammer, it went from growling at me almost instantly to, oh no, trouble. And it kind of turned its upper body and looked back the way that it came, and then it turned and looked out the way the deer went. And then at that point, it wasn't, oh, 20, 30 seconds of it standing there staring at me trying to figure out what to do, that it just spun around, headed back behind the boulder, and back up into the hole where it came from. And as soon as I heard it stop, probably a couple of 100 yards away, It I stood up and started up the hill, and then it screamed. And from 200 yards away, that scream hit me in my back and it shook me inside. And I still got my rifle here across my chest, and I still got it on full cock, and I got my thumb on the hammer to keep it from going off. But I did my best impression of an Olympic walker getting back out to where my dad was at. And that's pretty much my first experience seeing Bigfoot.
Now, were you relieved, or I guess it might be a silly question. Were you relieved, or were you disappointed that you didn't have to take the shot?
I was relieved. I
Okay.
wasn't completely sure that it wasn't, somebody else in a ghillie
Hmm.
suit or something. But by the time that it stopped growling at me, when it started growling at me, I knew it wasn't a person at that point. But I was relieved it didn't have
Okay. And something else that you said really stuck out to me. You said that when it turned to look at you, it turned its whole body. It didn't turn its neck, right?
to shoot.
And you hear
No,
that all the time. Like they can't. It seems like they can't. They don't have the ability to turn their heads like we do. They have
no,
to do it in upper body twists like that. So you're
yes,
saying that's what it did, right?
yeah, it turned its complete body. Its upper body and its leg moved in one. It just kind of spun itself around by taking a step to turn itself, and it turned its whole body towards me. To I guess it either smelled me or something, and that's when it turned and looked at me. It turned to face the threat that it perceived.
So you think that you surprised it. It had its attentions on the deer out there. Maybe it was hunting, and you don't think that it knew you were there until it stepped out.
No, I would have to say that that thing didn't know I was there. The deer never even looked at me. And whitetail deer, they if there's the slightest hint of a human scent anywhere, and they pass through it, they go on full alert. They never went to full alert. So I know the wind was hitting me coming up out of the hall.
Okay. Okay. And you talked a little bit about the detail that you were able to see on the face. And if you mentioned it, I'm sorry I missed it. But how far away were you from this thing?
20 feet.
20 feet. So you were able to get some pretty good detail.
Yeah, I could see all the wrinkles in its face. I could see, the eye color, and there was no eye color. This thing had coal black eyes. It did not have any color to its eyes at all. It was coal black, the whole eye.
Would would you would you say it looked more human or more like an animal?
It had a human type nose. It didn't have much of a brow ridge, and but I never saw the ears on the thing. I guess they were covered up by the long hair.
You hear that a
But I
lot.
would have to say it was more human.
Okay. Okay. And would you say it was a male or a female?
It was definitely a male.
Were you able to see any type of down low area?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You couldn't miss it.
Yeah, I don't want to get too graphic, for it's a family show, but
Yeah,
it's an important question, so that tells you that it was a male, and you think it was around 7 foot tall.
I'd say between 7 and 8 foot tall. The way it was hunched over and everything, if it was able to stand up straight, it would have been closer to 8 foot. 7, 9, 7.
Now, if us as people, if we look at another person and we look at their face, we can tell pretty quick if it's an older individual or if it's a younger individual. With you being 20 feet away and seeing its face, would you think that it was an older one, or was there some youth there?
I would say it would have to be something along the lines of a 20-year-old,
Like a
it's a
20-year-old male,
Bigfoot
like a
20-year-old
human.
male. Yes.
Okay. That's yeah. Someone had just commented on here. Let me just put it up here. I think it's a good comment. Not too many encounters sound scary to me. This one does. I don't know why. Maybe because he's painting such a vivid picture for us. I don't know, but I can hear the sincerity in his voice. Scary, and I agree. I agree. You do sound sincere, and it sounds like a pretty scary encounter. Like the way you said this thing looked at you and kind of grunted and like took a step toward you. That's terrifying.
Well, it actually took 2 steps towards me.
Yeah.
The first one was just like maybe a half a step. It didn't cover much ground. Um, it probably got a foot and a half, 2 feet closer to me with the first step. But then the second step it took a full length step. It closed the distance. And I was
Yeah.
already, whenever it took that step and was still growling, and I pulled the hammer back and my finger went automatically on the trigger, I was applying pressure to the trigger. I thought it was going to be a life or death situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing you didn't have to pull the trigger because it's a belief of mine that when the day comes that someone does shoot this thing and put one down, if I were to do it, if you were to do it, I don't think that we would ever have the opportunity to get the body out of the woods. I don't think that they're solo creatures. I think they travel in packs. I think we've all established that they're family units. We believe. So I believe if you shoot one, if you injure one, you're not going to make it out of there. That's what I believe.
Well, from my own experience over the past 30 plus years of knowing these things are alive and looking around for them, look throughout the state of West Virginia. I've been into Ohio, um, been into Kentucky, down North Carolina, uh, and through my job, I go across the U.S. and this, just from the stories I get from other people, tells me that if you make the mistake of killing one, you better be ready to kill the rest of the clan because they are a clan type being.
Exactly. That's what I believe. I believe with all my heart that there wasn't just one there with you one day. There was probably some more out in the woods watching, making sure everything was okay. And if you'd have pulled that trigger, you'd have been in trouble, even if you had dropped it. That's what I believe.
Yeah, there's no way of getting around that. Uh, I've talked to quite a few different investigators, you know, in this amount of time, and every one of them say that they see the one, but then they always hear some coming up from behind or to the right or the left, and you're not, with unless you're carrying a semi-automatic rifle, you're not going to be able to shoot all of them and kill all of them before they got to.
And you're going to have a huge caliber at that. I mean, a 50 cal maybe. And yeah, I don't think that it's possible. As fast as these things are reported to be, as big as they are, yeah, you would be in trouble. I think we can all agree with that. So that was your first encounter. You were a 16-year-old young man in 1984 in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about the next one. What happened next? How long of a time, or what for you after that? After that happened, what happened in you? Did that spark an interest, or what?
Well, for about 5 years, I didn't want to go back out hunting because now I knew these things were around. And my dad gave me some advice on the way home because I told my dad what happened, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't ever tell your mom. Don't tell your grandmother because they'll never let us go hunting again if you tell them." Because when I was a kid, I showed respect to my elders, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, because I lived with them, and I knew that they knew that I didn't lie about things like this, and I didn't make stuff up. I wasn't. I was a straight A student in school most of the time. Every once in a while, I'd get a B, and then uh, I'd see the disappointment in my mom and my dad's eyes and my grandmother's eyes, and that bothered me a lot when I was a kid. So I never lied to them, never gave them reason to doubt me, and Dad just said, don't tell your mom and your grandmother because they'll never let us go hunting again. And he meant my dad, my three brothers. We'd never be able to go again, and I kept going because my dad would get me to go, would tell me, "Hey, be ready, we'll go hunting tomorrow, but we're not going back out there." And I kept going, but I didn't want to go because I was afraid of seeing another one of these.
Yeah.
But that definitely sparked an interest in them because then I started, kind of looking into the subject as best I could and talking to other people, and that's what got me into it.
Okay. So you did like most people. You stayed out of the woods for a while after that first encounter. So how long after that one in '84 till your next one? And can you tell us about it?
Well, I never saw another one um, because I tried to push it to the back of my mind and didn't look for them for quite a long time. Didn't go out and actively look for them. I was probably in my middle 30s when I saw the next one. I was deer hunting with a buddy of mine up in Ohio, and it was over near Nelsonville, Ohio, and we were hunting some public land there, deer hunting in Ohio with shotguns. And he talked me into me and him going, and then he took his son with us, and his son shot him a deer that. And when they shot the deer, we was in an area that I've been into many times, bow hunting, been there squirrel hunting, turkey hunting, everything, and never had any trouble. And we went in there deer hunting that day, and there wasn't nobody else around. Again, there wasn't no other vehicles around. Never saw anybody before we parked. And they went one way and I went another, and he shot a deer, and I heard the gun go off, and I went to him. Well, by the time I got to him, they'd already seen uh, this Bigfoot. They were gutting a deer, and when this thing come out, and I wasn't probably but 100 yards away from him, and he shot again into the ground, and I thought, what in the world's going on? So I tailed it in there to him, and he's telling me what why he shot, and I was like, okay, I know a little bit about these things. Um, let's get out of here. And we were in an area where they call them the high grass man,
Hmm.
and we started dragging a deer out of there and got next to the top of the hill, and I turned around and I heard something coming up the hill and looked and saw another one. Saw the one that he shot into the ground to scare off. And I said, look, get to the truck. I'll stand here and watch your back. The truck's another 50 yards or so up the hill. It's parked right beside the road. Just throw it in the truck and I'll be right there. And when they got out of sight, this thing is still coming up the hill, dodging between trees coming up the hill. And whenever it stepped out from a big oak, I put a slug right into the tree to try to scare it off, to warn it. The next one's coming at you. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna take a chance of somebody getting hurt. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to hurt them, and I don't want to have to shoot them. But this thing is coming at us and coming after that deer, and that's just a big problem. And it
Hmm.
ran off, and I went back up there and sent him down the road to check the deer in, and we took pictures of the deer, him and his boy with his deer and everything. And when they left, I stayed, but made sure I had quite a few more slugs in for the shotgun. And I went over and shot a deer and gutted it and drug it back up the hill and was sitting there waiting. And we loaded deer up. And when we loaded deer up, we heard one scream from the holler that I just came out of. And then the one that was in the other holler on the right hand side of the road screamed too. And so we got everything put in the truck and we were leaving. And whenever I started to pull off, I looked in the rearview mirror in my pickup and seen two of them walk out from opposite sides of the road and start up the road. So I didn't waste any time getting out of the area because I didn't want to have to do anything, to harm them. And I didn't want to have to put a young kid in that kind of a situation.
Y'all were some brave men hanging around there when you knew that there was something like that watching you and wanting your deer, basically. I think.
Well, I don't call it bravery on my part. Um, at that time, I was pretty stupid. Um, I didn't know a lot about them, but after that happened, I got back into looking for them and finding out stuff. Because then we had the internet. When I was a kid, you didn't have the internet, and
Yeah.
reading everybody's accounts that you could find on the BFRO and stuff like that. And the BFRO, and this is my personal opinion. This is not your opinion, but it's mine. They only put out stories of where people see them, and they have no interaction. Or if the interaction's there, it's something that's docile and mundane. But that's what got me back into it was seeing them again, and then I kept check on them all this time since then. Since I was about 35, 36 years old, maybe.
Okay. My good friend Mr. Daryl Owen has a question for you.
Okay.
He says, though he has seen multiple creatures, does he feel the same way with each encounter? Do you feel the same way every time that you see one?
No, no, never had.
So
Um,
you get a different feeling, a different vibe from the different ones.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and seeing more of these. The last ones that I've seen, uh, it's not like they're there. They don't want to harm you. They just want to scare you off.
Hmm.
Um, they're not super aggressive. They might run at you a little bit or something of that nature, but they don't want to harm you. I don't get the feeling that I have from the first one compared to the ones that I've seen, other ones I've seen here in West Virginia or I've seen in North Carolina or even in Kentucky. Um, I've not had the same feeling with every one.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So, were you able with these two to get as much detail as you were with the first one? Probably not.
No, the only one that I really got a good look at was the one that was looking out from the side of the tree, and the brief second or two that he would dodge between the trees. And I would have to say he was probably close to 8.5 foot tall. A dark brown hair. He had some black mixed in his hair, but not a lot. And his face was almost black as coal. Um, but I didn't get to see him from. I didn't look through the scope at his face. I was looking through the scope at the tree that he was standing behind, and trying to make sure I didn't hit it or its hand or anything like that to create a big, huge problem.
Now, is that something that you would recommend to others to maybe buy them some time shooting around in their direction, or would you do that again?
Would I do it again?
Yeah.
Uh, Personally, if there is a way to keep from having to kill one, um, I have personally, I have no qualms about if I have to shoot. I don't want to, but it's going to have to be a life or death situation for me to have to take the shoot.
Amen.
If you got a shotgun, it's got buckshot in it, 7.5, number 4s, 6s, whatever. I wouldn't suggest shooting one with that. I would suggest maybe shooting in the ground, not too far from you, so that way you know the load doesn't, the buckshot doesn't hit the Bigfoot. Um, but it's got to be coming at you before I'd recommend taking any kind of a shot at it.
No, I agree with that. Agree 100%. And I really do think that it's personal belief of mine that they know what guns are and they don't like them. So
Right.
I can see the advantage of firing a shot. And that's what I was asking you. Do you think it's an advantage for someone that might be in a situation like that to fire a couple shots just maybe to get it away from you?
Yeah, it would be an advantage for you. Um, they understand what a gun is. They understand. I think they understand completely that if you got something in your hands, they associate it with being a firearm, whether it's a phone or something of that nature. If you hold it
Mhm.
like it's a gun, they're going to associate it as being a firearm that can harm them. They know they can harm
I've heard that before. The people say just take your phone out and point it at them. That you might get them to leave, and that's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay, so we've covered two of your sightings. I mean, if you don't mind, we'll just keep going down the line. When did uh, when did number three happen? And again, all of our listeners, we got our viewers here are really active tonight. If you guys have any questions that you want me to relay to them, I'll definitely do it. So keep them coming, guys. But in the meantime, we'll move on to number three and where it was and how much time elapsed between two and three, and just walk us into it.
Well, number three happened about 2 years ago down in. Um, I was I just turned 50, and me and my wife, I had gotten back into this and was into the Bigfoot thing and was on a channel that was a talk channel, which is a Discord channel that people of that's seen Bigfoot or are very interested in Bigfoot were on, and a lady that was on there asked me if I knew anybody that could, maybe come down and help her out with the situation she was going through. So me and my wife took a little bit of a weekend off and went down to North Carolina. And we got down there, and this lady, she's a wonderful lady. I have her on my channel. The interview I did with her that night down there. Well, we got down there on a Friday, and when I showed up, I went carrying a sidearm, and I wasn't worried about having any trouble. I didn't think there'd be any way there'd be any trouble. And once we got there, we met her. We were pretty much friends before we met each other. And then after we got down there, we had a wonderful time down there talking to her and her showing us different things, different places she's seen them around her home, or they come up and smacked her home. And I started looking around for, tree breaks and tree bows and maybe some hides that they've made, and I found all that stuff, and even found a footprint, and it wasn't a very good print, but I knew that it was a print because I got down to the ground and looked down at it, and you could see the toe prints in the front, and then you could see the whole foot by following the toe prints back. And in the picture that I took of it, I wear a size 14 shoe, which is 14 inches long. Well, this thing is 4 or 5 inches longer than my foot. And I showed it to her, and that was Friday evening. We sit outside and talk, and we left probably around 10 o'clock. And then we went back on Saturday and done an interview with her Saturday evening. Well, the thing was, on Saturday afternoon, she wanted to cook for us. So I sent her and my wife off to the grocery store, and I knew what I was going to do. I was going to go behind her house and find more evidence and try to figure out why they were staying around her house. And I went back through, there was a big, huge patch of bamboo, and I had to cut my way through it. That's how thick it was to get through it. And when I went back there, I went back and saw that there was a farm and they had animals and stuff on that farm. And then went to the left. If you were facing her home, it'd be the left side of her home. And I went back to the left and got close to some pretty dense cover on the left side back there in the woods behind all that bamboo. And I seen footprints. I saw tree bows and tree breaks back there in those woods. So I knew they were traveling through there. I just didn't know for certain if they were staying. And when I turned and went back towards the bamboo, a young female, I would say she'd probably have to be of, how can I put this, of breeding age. And she came charging out on all fours from the dense underbrush and timber at me, and I'm standing there with, because I had let them take my handgun with them, and all I had was a machete that I was cutting the bamboo with. And she charged at me, and she stopped. I'm glad she stopped. Didn't want to have to deal with that situation. And that's the ones that scare me when they charge you.
And she charged you on all fours.
Yeah, she stayed on all fours.
Wow.
If you asked me a height, I would have to guess she was probably close to 7 feet, 6.5 to 7 foot tall. Light colored hair. She wasn't a dark color. I'd only seen dark colors before, and she had almost, it was like almost like a sandy blonde, but just a couple of shades darker than a sandy blonde. And I pulled the machete out and I told her, I spoke to her in English. I said, "Hey, you better stop. It ain't gonna be pretty if both of us get into this." And she stopped and looked at me and growled a couple of times. And I said, "Hey, I didn't know that y'all were there. I didn't know y'all were staying here. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother y'all or to get close to your little ones, whatever. So let's just break this off and we'll call it even, and I'll leave you alone." And after about 15, 20 seconds of her being on all fours, growling at me, looking at me, she finally turned around and just slowly walked off on all fours.
She walked off again on all fours?
Yeah, she never stood up. Why, I don't know. Usually, if they're trying to threaten you, they stand up.
So do you think that you might have been getting a little too close to Mama and the little one?
I would have to say I probably got way too close to that, what I would call a beta female, and the alpha female was there, and there was probably other females in that brush, and they probably had some little ones in there with them.
Okay, now don't give, the address or anything like that, but I was also wondering myself, like, what part of North Carolina where did this happen?
I will tell you this much: it's near
Near where?
Sanford, North Carolina.
Sanford, North Carolina. Now, is that a mountainy region or is it flat, forested? What?
It's more like a the area around there, there's a few little hills. Um, they might raise 50 to 100 feet up from where the normal land is. It's heavily forested, and the place we were at, there was homes close to her, but not sitting on top of it. I mean, there you had acreage, but maybe a quarter of an acre between the houses.
Okay. Now, she was charging you on all four, and I find that fascinating because I haven't myself. I haven't taken in a lot of encounters where people have witnessed them being on all fours. I've heard plenty, but I've never spoken to anyone personally that has seen it. So I think that's really interesting. You probably weren't paying enough attention, but I mean, could you tell like what her hands were doing? I mean, was she open palm or on knuckles or?
She was down on knuckles. She would. It wasn't a closed fist. It was kind of like knuckles down, and your hand like that.
Okay, and how close did she get to you before she stopped?
Probably about 50 feet.
50 feet. That's still too close.
Yeah, it was a little bit close for me. I was starting to sweat bullets at this point.
Now we've established so far that you've seen a couple of guys, a couple of male Bigfoots, and you've seen this female Bigfoot.
Yeah.
What kind of characteristics, what kind of changes are there, like differences in the facial features between the two of them?
Well, she had more of a lady's tapering to her face. Um, you know, you I, you guys can see my big head, um, but it was more. She didn't have a real prominent jawline like we do, and her chin wasn't sticking out like a man's do. It's more of a woman's facial features. She did have a brow line, and that was the first one that I really could tell that she had a brow line on. And her hair just kind of stopped just above the brow line, and she was she was mad. You could tell that she was upset. Um, what I liken it to is if you're married and you got a wife, when the wife looks at you and you've really done something wrong, that was her look.
Yeah.
Um, you know, my lovely wife is only 5 foot tall, but she's a stick of dynamite, and I don't ever get it to that point.
And yeah, we all know that look that you're talking about.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, you could definitely tell that she had, breasts, and she had her hips were wider than what I've, the males that I'd say. But she had a more slender body.
Okay. And something else I thought was interesting about this one is you actually spoke to her
Yeah.
in English. Do you, and clearly it's just speculation on your part, there's no way of knowing unless she spoke back to you, but do you feel like she comprehended what you were saying?
Yes, I do. I wholeheartedly believe she understood every word that I said to her.
Wow. Wow.
She, you know, the reason is because through talking to other people that have seen these creatures, and from people that have said they've rebuked them in the name of the Lord, um, they understand English, and I dare to say they probably understand a lot of other languages in this world.
So that brings up another something else I wanted to ask. Just your opinion on how do you feel about mind speak, the whole telekinesis thing?
I believe certain ones can get into your head, um, but in I've never had one do it to me. Um, I have talked to other people that have said that they talk to them, not verbally, but through through their mind, as spoken and entered into their mind.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion on it is the ones that do that are more along the lines of something that is uh, being controlled by a demonic nature.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. And nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. I mean, you could be 100% right, could be way off. We don't know, but that's definitely an interesting take. Um, Tell you what, we are coming up on an hour now, and it
Mhm.
does not feel like it because I mean, time flies when you're talking about something you're interested in, and this is something we're all very passionate about. Obviously, we only got through three of your encounters, so I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but my Tennessee math tells me there's five more
Yeah,
for us to go over. So I'd love to have you back, maybe sometime
anything.
soon, if you think you can fit it in.
Oh, I can fit it in. I can't work because of this eye right now, so I'm
Okay.
good all the way up till the 9th of this month.
Okay. Well, we do our shows. You guys know we go live Monday night, but I'm laid off too, so we might be able to do a special episode maybe this week. You and I will talk after the program, see if we can set it up, and we'll try to go over the rest of these encounters and see if we can get that squared away. That sound good?
Okay. That sounds good to me.
All right, buddy. All that being said, I want to take time and thank you again for coming on. Just fascinating encounters, man. These weren't just roadside crossings that you had. You were out there with them, and
Yeah.
we can learn a lot from stuff like that. So, man, I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Hey, anytime at all. Oh, there is something I wanted to let you know and
Yeah,
let
go
you
ahead.
hear. I am a Christian minister, and I am very proud to hear that you accepted our Lord and Savior. That is a blessing to me. I really
Oh,
I really appreciate it. The hearing that.
yes, sir. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's really cool. God works funny ways, don't he? I mean, I don't talk about that stuff a lot, and then here he had me do it when I had a preacher on, and I didn't know you were a preacher. That's pretty cool. That's cool. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you.
hey, it's my pleasure being here, and it's you've blessed me in more ways than you know by hearing that.
Okay, I appreciate it, buddy. And all that being said, we will let you slide out of here, sir. You have a good night.
All right, you have a good one too.
All right, guys. What do y'all think about that? That's there's some good encounters right there. Like I said, these ain't just roadside crossings or looking out your window and seeing one in your backyard. I mean, he was out there. He was out there amongst them, and got himself into a couple pretty hairy situations there. No pun intended. But yeah, we set that. We got that almost set up now, where we can bring him back for a part two, and maybe we can get through the rest of these encounters. So, guys, watch for that. We'll try to set it up one day this week. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday, but I don't know just yet. But yeah, we'll try to put that up. Guys, I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out. Had good participation tonight. We had a bunch of our regulars, Mr. Eric Young, Pappy Two Bears, the Wild Man was here, and had some people that were new, like the bomber there and Sharon and people like that. So we appreciate you coming and spending some time with us tonight, and hope that you hit that subscribe button if you hadn't done it already, and if you have, tell people about us. We would appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so very much for coming out and spending an hour with us. We appreciate it, and I hope everybody will be safe out there, be good to each other, and yeah, that's about it. Just be good to each other and be safe, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.